Welcome to the Connected Growth Coaching Podcast, where we support women to rediscover who they are so they can thrive in all parts of their lives. Your hosts, Jen Heilman and Amanda Kingsley, share with you unique life coaching resources centered around the power of the mind and the ancient practice of Feng Shui. All right. It's a big one today, everybody.
Yes, feeling some major resistance on this one. This is a hard one for us. It's a hard one for
really hard one for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really big one.
Amanda was literally hovering her finger over the record button, like not wanting to like press record because it's a big one, you know? But that, I love that you came to that immediate awareness, right? You were like, oh, wwhy am I hesitating right now? And you know, this is why.
Because it's the family area. So this week in our Bagua interview series, we're talking about the family and heritage area. So, yeah, it literally catches my breath. And there's this beautiful light coming into my kitchen right now. Just recently, literally in the last couple of weeks, I had a big shift for myself in this area. So it'd probably be really important for me to get back in there and spice things up because I have not. But all right, Jen, family and heritage. What is the most important thing for us to know about this area?
Right. So as you may have guessed, it's about letting go. So the main thing is that it is about our past and our heritage, and which are such important things in our lives. And yet we hold on to them, in a way that's really unhealthy. Like we keep revisiting the past. We keep thinking about the things we should have said or would have said or could have said or how it might have gone differently. And we keep going back to those stories over and over and over again, and it just isn't serving us. And so if we can change our perspective and reposition our, minds to look at our past in a way that's helpful, and the fact that we went through those things, those experiences, so that we could become the person that we are now, and it's an integral piece in the people that we are becoming, and to learn from all of those things that we tend to look back on and, hopefully not regret, but there, many people have regrets about how things went down in certain situations. And so, I personally have, many situations where I wish I had done something differently, or I had done it differently. And so, but we can't beat ourselves up for it because that's who we
are. Having an anxiety
right? I know. Here. Breathe, Amanda, breathe.
Gosh, this is the heavy lifting for me.
It is, and it's the heavy lifting for most people. And so it is an area when you look at it on the Bagua map and you're like, yeah, family and heritage, whatever, it's not that big a deal.
True.
But it's one of those underlying areas that really is the support in moving forward. And we talk about each of these being connected to another area. And so the family area is directly connected to the creativity area. And so, the family area is all about the past, and the creativity area is all about the future, right? And so if we don't let go of our past, or just let it be, right, and accept it for what it is, we can't launch ourselves into that future. And so the good thing about the foundation, or about the family area, is that it is our foundation, right? And so if we start thinking about it instead of this like clinging to the past and being distraught about how things went, instead thinking about it as our foundation, and the heritage part comes in there, where you're building from all of these people that of our generations past, and they're learning and building up from there. And if we can look at that and learn from them and from our past, individual past, then we can accept it and understand it, and then, help us move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you give us an example of like something that we may not be letting go of, that it's time to let go of? Like, what does that mean? Like what kind of old story might we be hanging on to?
Right. Relationships comes to mind, about maybe how you handled, the breakup of a significant person in your life, and how it all went down.
Or would this
and
be like also like abandonment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if you felt like you were not safe as a child, or and that somehow you had to carry that with you, right? Like,
right.
Because I wasn't safe and held as a child, or in a relationship, like you were saying. Now that's a part of my story. Like it broke me, and that's who I am.
Right. Oof.
Right.
Yeah. Oof.
So interesting, because like I have such resistance in this area, but fortunately, I don't have those big stories. So for anyone listening who struggles in this area and does not have significant like family stories that affected them, like it's still there.
Yeah, it's still a thing. Yep.
It's still there. But that's what I always imagine is like, those stories about your childhood or your formative years that you allowed to define you.
Right. Exactly. I just think about like what we were talking about last week with the creativity area. And for me, sitting next to my best friend and having her just magically do her art project and feel like she was totally in the flow.
Yeah.
And,
there's a good story.
I was like sitting there next to her, judging myself, and all of a sudden I have this story that I'm not a creative person, and that stuck with me forever and ever and ever. And so it's that kind of, those stories, those tall tales that we have developed mostly from our childhood. Yeah.
It's just like your belief system.
It is your belief system.
It may be religious based.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
And some of these things you want to hold on to and nurture.
Yes, of course. Yeah, that's the positive side of it, right?
Sure.
Is that there's, of course we want to speak to that, like there is this foundation that, comes from, our families and our communities. And, hopefully there's things in there that you do want to hold on to, but when we're talking about letting go, it's more about, letting go of those old stories that just aren't serving you anymore. Yeah.
I think because it's the foundation, I like to imagine that beautiful, I never remember the name of it, that like Japanese art where you fill in the cracks with the gold.
Wabi-sabi.
Yeah. So because even the stories that we might not have chosen are a part of our foundation.
Yeah.
I think they can be hard for us to let go of completely. And so one way to let go of them is to just reframe them and paint them beautifully, like fill them in with gold. Because perhaps, a more intense thing like an abusive childhood, it put a crack in your foundation. And that's not something you can ever get rid of or even want to. Although some people might argue with that up front. Instead, we want to fill it in and make it a piece of our foundation that serves us, right?
Right, exactly.
And so I like to visually imagine filling in those cracks. Like if I want to move forward, I got to fill in the cracks that the family stories have left me.
Right. Yeah. What did you learn from that experience?
Yeah.
Right? What were the positive things?
Right. How did it make you stronger?
Yeah, exactly. How are you serving the world because of it? How are you carrying it forward?
Or what connections did you make because of it? right?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
What friendships did you develop, or,
right.
or people that came into your life because
Who
of
can
it?
you help? Who can you
Right.
serve?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what direction is
Yeah.
your life heading in now because of it? You know? And
Yeah.
so
all right. So
yeah.
if we were to get in here into this area and give it some attention in our homes, how would it affect us, like personally and in our intimate family? And then how would it affect us in a broader picture as we step outside of our homes and into the big, brave world?
Right. Exactly. Well, I think, so many of us are afraid to fail, right? And to show that failure on the outside. And what a tremendous gift it is to show your loved ones and your children when you fail, or when you even if it's you yell at your kids, and then you because you're having a spun out moment and you've kind of lost touch with what's really happening with your emotions, and so you yell at your kids, and then you pull yourself back together and you realize it had nothing to do with them and everything to do with me. So you go over and you say, I'm sorry.
Right.
I was having a moment, and I'm sorry that I took it out on you, and that wasn't fair of me, and just like little moments like that. Where you show up in a totally different way.
It's almost like you lean into your foundation and go, okay, I got this. I'm stable. I might have messed up.
Right.
But exactly. I'm not going to fall over.
Right. And I'm human, right? You show your human side to your kids, and, to a loved one or a coworker or whoever it is, that you kind of lost your cool with, and, to come back and say, hey, I'm sorry. I realize now that was not the best way to handle this, and I apologize. And like, that just opens you up to, just such a beautiful way of being. And people, when you're sincere and you're genuine in that apology and that self-awareness, people, they accept it, and they're like, okay, it's all right. I get it. I've been there before, and, thank you for recognizing it, and thank you for the apology. So I think just being able to show in your, inner circle that you're human, right? Yep. And you are going to lose your mind every once in a while. And, it's okay for you to lose your mind every once in a while too. And I'm going to love you no matter what,
And this is the stuff that's really tricky for me. This is where it comes up big time. And also there's this piece here just about self-forgiveness.
Oh God.
Yeah. It's huge.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly.
So, all right. What are the most important do's and don'ts in this area?
So we like to talk about elements in Feng Shui, and this area is directly related to the tree element or wood. And so having as much wood in that area as possible. And I love plants. Plants are my go-to in this area, and in many areas of my home. So plants, and having that, make sure that I'm just thinking about my family area right now, and I have a dying palm plant that I need to do something with. And I'm like, I know it shouldn't be in my family area. I'm not totally sure what to do with it.
That's so funny. I literally moved so I had a dying palm plant too. And I was like, it might come back to life. And I had left it in my knowledge area. And just this morning, like 20 minutes before you came, I moved it upstairs to the hallway. I was like, maybe it'll like the light up here and come back to life.
Right.
But yeah, that's really funny. Yeah. I was like, where should I put a dying plant in my home?
I know.
Oh, wait.
Yeah. I don't know that there's like any good place to put a dying plant in your home.
You might have to let it go.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, these plants, they serve their purpose, and they live their lives and their cycles, and we can't save them.
Yeah, I have one in my fame area that has served its purpose and needs to go.
It needs to go, right?
It's ready.
Exactly. Yeah, it's ready, and it's ready, and so that's basically what it is. We just have a foot of snow, and I want to be able to just throw it out into the woods, and I don't want to make my way across the the yard into the woods with the plant. So it's just sitting there. So I will, when I get home, I will sacrifice it to the Feng Shui gods and, and send it on its way. But that is the number one thing that you can do in there. Wood furniture is great. You could put pictures or paintings of trees or anything like that. Paper, wicker, baskets, anything like that is great for that area. And the major don't for that area would be fire. Right? It's depleting, obviously, it's destructive. And I like to think of the tree energy, particularly in this area, as like the family tree, right? And the roots and it really being rooted into the earth, and that being your foundation, and then growing up from there and branching off, in many different directions. So yeah. So water is supportive in this area, and fire is destructive.
Mm-hmm. I love the root analogy too, if you're thinking about foundation, because roots just grow around what's in the way.
Yeah, I love that.
Sort of like how water just moves around the boulders in the river. Mm-hmm. But roots do the same thing. And so if you think, and so if that visual is better for you in terms of like, and I'm using extreme examples, but if you did have an abusive childhood in any way, like, imagine the roots just moving around it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like, I don't have to pretend it wasn't there, but I also don't have to let it stop my growth.
Right. Exactly. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So for our listeners who like to just leave us having done one thing, go home and do one thing in their family area. And remember, for any new listeners, you're going to want to understand the Bagua map. So check out the link in our notes or on our website, or just do a good old Google search of the Bagua map.
Yeah, it's amazing how many come up.
And find, there's lots. Mm-hmm. And then find your family area. So one thing.
Yeah. I think we already covered it, but a plant.
A plant.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. A plant is great.
And now there's like a lot of Feng Shui stuff about plants. So there's, I remember being really intimidated by the plant scene. So I was like, wait, that one's too spiky and that one's too.
That's a very good point.
So tell us some things about what plant would be best for this area.
So one of the Feng Shui no plants are the cactus, right? Because it's just so interesting because people love them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you have cactuses, you want them someplace where you're not going to bump into them, right? So it's about experiencing your space in a way that's nurturing, and maybe cactuses are just not the thing to have in your space, but if you can put them in a spot that you're not going to like hurt yourself, the one area that they do say that you could put the put the cactus in is the fame area, because it's kind of like, hey, don't mess with me kind of thing, right?
I love that.
But so in the family area, I would not recommend a cactus. You don't want to have like a prickly, stabby kind of plant in that area.
It seems like you'd want something like hardy.
Yeah, hardy, like even a tree, right? Like a tree kind of like really deeply rooted kind of plant would be ideal in that area for sure. Yeah. Something like, like a heavy pot.
Okay.
Yeah, that feels grounded and rooted, but has that upward expansive growth to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Mm-hmm. Even something flowering would be really beautiful too, right? Because if you're letting go, it's that whole process of, that cycle of the flowering and letting go. And, moving forward. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, take a picture of your plant in your family area and send it to us. We would love that.
I would love that. Perfect.
And maybe we'll take a picture of some of the plants in our family area.
Great idea.
Let's take a quick break and come back and talk about how you can think about some of this stuff from a mindset perspective, and just doing some thought work around this, around this area, because when you can come at these topics from your inside mind and your outside home, things really stick. They stick and they sustain, and you don't get thrown off your core so much. So We'll be right back. Let's face it, no two lives are the same, and there are no one-size-fits-all tips and tricks. We love connecting with you on the podcast, but remember that if you want game-changing results, one-on-one coaching is where it's at. You can access our programs at connectedgrowthcoaching.com, and we will walk you through the unique circumstances that arise in your life and your home. And we're back.
We are back.
Family. I'm guessing that most listeners could journal about their family for days on end, or they put a pen in their hand and completely freeze.
Right. Resistance.
So this could be a lifetime worth of journal entries, but we'll keep it simple. I like lists. I'm very much like a bullet journaler, a list journaler. So I'd say just let's dig into some lists. Like first make a list of what are you holding on to? And maybe like physical things. You could start with those. Like I've been holding on to this broken sculpture that my grandfather gave me, and every time I see it, I think of him, but I'm also really upset with myself that I let it break.
Right.
And so maybe it's time to let it go. What are you holding on to? So it can be physical things like that. Or like we talked about, I'm holding on to my first relationship that didn't end well. Or I'm holding on to my belief that I can control my life.
Right.
So let your mind wander into what are you resisting letting go of? My belief that money can only be made through hard work. This job that I wish I weren't in anymore. So just keep going. What are the things?
Are all amazing examples.
Yeah.
You're a
what
wizard
are
with
the
examples.
things that you are holding on to? And then if you can create a second column or just another list, what is it that's keeping you from letting those things go? So, not wanting to let go of that remembrance of your grandfather. And then is there another way? Is there another way you can honor him without feeling guilty that you broke his statue?
Right. I would say that guilt is the number one thing that we want to let go of.
Yeah.
And from a Feng Shui point of view, it is one of the ugliest and hardest emotions to
and that's
bear.
A big one for people with work too, right? Like I don't like my job, but I have responsibility to this company. And what are they going to do without me? Or fear that I won't find something that will serve me better. But there tends to be a lot of guilt, I feel like, around jobs, like particularly if you're a breadwinner or, you really need that income. But what is it that's keeping you from letting go? Is it, well, at least I know this story and I might not be safe if I change? Is it a memory? Is it anger, right? Is it something that you just are refusing to forgive around? Might you just need a little perspective switch? So yeah, do some lists. What are you holding on to and what's keeping you from letting those things go? And just because you make this list doesn't mean you'll be ready to let go. It's just awareness. So a lot of what we do, everything we do, starts with awareness.
Yeah.
It starts with seeing. So, don't feel pressure that once you make this list, you got to do the work of the letting go. Just be with it, see it, allow it, be aware. And then I want you to also make a list of how it would serve you if you were to let go of some of these things. Just pick a few and kind of brainstorm what might happen, what is possible. And let's stick in the positive theme here. What might be possible if you did let go of that job that's not serving you anymore? What might be possible if you did forgive your first boyfriend or your mother or, the abusive relationship you were in? not, again, that you need to do the work of letting go yet. Just recognize what might happen if you did, right? Yeah. Well, I'm not ready to, but if I did forgive the other driver in the accident, I may be able to get on the road and drive safer myself, or move forward and build the life that doesn't revolve around my grieving, or whatever it is. So just see what might be possible. And from there, I'll let you take it as far as what amount of work you want to do in terms of the letting go. You can always reach out to us. This is the kind of stuff we work deeply with in our programs, because it's one thing to see what's possible. It's another thing to actually have the support and the tools to let it go. So that is what we do. Always feel free to reach out, and I'm going to call it a wrap with those lists. Those are big lists. That's a big list.
I'm proud of us for a high five.
We made it through. Those are some big ones. So this was particularly my area of resistance. I will do that journal work myself. I'm going to go into my family area and do a little sprucing up. And I hope you do the same. Send us your pictures. All right. Until next week. Next week we are talking about helpful people in travel. All right. So anyone who has travel dreams for 2019, make sure you hop back on. I do. As always, thanks for listening. If you learned something today that can help the people in your circle, please help us get the word out by sharing. When you leave us a rating and review on iTunes, it not only warms our hearts, but it helps people find us. We are eternally grateful for your support, and we're looking forward to connecting with you next week. Until then, you can find the show notes at www.connectedgrowthcoaching.com. You can grab your journal and then get your shui on.